Starting live video. We're on. Hey, crowd. Anybody watching? Hello? Nobody yet. Anyway, if you're watching this later, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching us on our latest. Oh, it looks like the phone's crooked. It looks like one of those Batman episodes. You know, the Bird Ward Batman and what's his name? Anyway, slipped his mind right now. No, slipped my mind. Bird Ward was Robin. Alan West. Oh God, I'm losing my geek cred here. Anyway, do you remember those old Batman shows where every time you're in the evil lair of the villain of the week, you know, the villain's lair was always at an angle, tilted at an angle. I just feel like that's where I am right now. I'm not going to mess with it because I'm not going to be on here long. I'm going to be looking at the rings today, which is what we're doing. Today we're doing rings. Anyway, just back up a minute. Thank you for joining us for the latest SilviaFindings live stream show, episode number, I don't know what episode it is, 39? No, we must be 40 by now. We're way up there, somewhere up there. We've done all the pendants. We finished all the pendants. Whew. Now today we're going on to rings. A couple of housekeeping things to bring up. Don't forget, if you share this video, you know, let us know. Even though we do get notice that you share the video, sometimes we don't always get more information than that, or so let us know if you do, and then my point is we'll send you one of these lovely polishing cloths that you should never wash, right, because that's a chamois material that's infused with that chemical that helps unbind the cupric oxide that's on the surface of your pieces, which, you know, the tarnish, and as soon as you wash it, that chemical is gone, and it'll still, you know, be a nice chamois, but it won't be able to de-tarnish your pieces as quickly, as easily. Whatever. What else? As far as shipping, I'm not going to go on a rant this week because it seems like it's actually getting better. Almost back to pre-pandemic levels. I actually had a package that was delivered to Montreal. We're in the, you know, suburbs of Vancouver, Richmond here, BC, clear across the country to Montreal, and that only took 9 days. I know, which pre-pandemic would have been like 9 days. Holy crap! Why did it take so long? But you know, during the peak of it, when it was really bad, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks was not unheard of. You know, so 9 days is good. So, you know, if you're on the East, don't feel so bad about, if I'm going to order this and now I got to wait a month, you know, like what third world country are we dealing with here? No, we're getting back into the swing of things. It's not as bad as it was. Of course, premium shipping is always a good option if you are in a hurry for stuff and you are ordering enough that it makes it worthwhile. Way back in the dark ages, when I used to own my own business, we had a retail store. Our limit for, like, you know, because we used to import stuff from overseas, and generally, if the shipping was 5% or less of the overall price, that was considered awesome. You know, 10% was the max that we would be okay with. You know, mind you, we were ordering, you know, many tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff, you know, so it made a difference. You know, but generally I think we're getting there, you know, as far as, you know, the shipping, you know, into the US is still great. Their infrastructure seems to be built for parcels. You know, for letter mail, I understand there's still some issues with slowing of that kind of stuff because of the shenanigans that went on before the election, which thankfully is over. You know, even in Canada, we were bombarded with this information about that kind of stuff. So we're glad you guys are all safe and you're all, it's all over. What else? Custom, the factory is opening up again this week. So if you have a custom order in, those should be coming soon, the next couple of weeks. They'll be casting them hopefully this week. And then, we got to look at them, we got to QC them, make sure everything is good. And then we'll ship them out to you. Or if we're shipping directly to you from there, then, we'll get it out to you as soon as we can. I know that there are some items, some rings, especially one in particular, where it seems like everybody who does commemorative jewelry, who does, the epoxy resin, and they mix their own, and they cast their own little cabochons with breast milk or crematory ashes or dog hair or whatever. I don't know, whatever. People doing all kinds of wonderful, crazy things in that commemoration jewelry niche. There's one particular ring that it seems like everybody who does that needs to have, and we're ordering, and we're casting lots more of them than usual. So if you're one of those people, you know who you are. There's a couple of people out there. We'll have lots, so don't worry about that us running out again. What else? No, I guess that's it. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, if it's a criticism, I don't want to hear it. But if it's a comment or a concern, hey, let me know. I'm just kidding. If it's a criticism, I want to hear it. I'm not going to listen to it, but I want to hear it. Just saying. What else? Okay, let's, I think having said that, let's go. I think we'll be doing rings for a couple of weeks, probably the next 3 or 4 weeks at least. Doing rings, and before I get onto the rings, let me just talk about one thing in particular that I noticed. Let me switch this around. I sold, and it wasn't this particular ring in particular. It was a pendant, but the pendant has similarly ridiculously long prongs like this. And I noticed that the customer wrote a review and said, "Oh, this is so lovely," and thing. But I looked at it and I thought, "Oh my God, the cab was not very thick, so the prongs literally almost met in the center of the the cabochon, and dude, that's too long. These are not meant to stay this long." Unless you got this crazy, super thick, cabochon, which I've seen lots of those too. So you could use that for this. But generally, stuff like this, you're meant to trim these down. Don't. I get the idea that it's meant to be, kind of like quote unquote plug and play. You just put the stone in and you pop the prongs down and boom, and there you're done. And most of our settings are indeed like that. But some of them, like ones like these, if the prongs are not super long, just snip them down a little bit. Snip them so they don't look ridiculous. Technically, and I don't have a drawing here. I'd be better with a drawing, but if you're using a cut stone, a faceted stone, the prong, traditionally, and this is what I was taught way back in the dark ages there when I was learning to be a bench jeweler, the prong should only extend at the most 50% of the distance from the girdle up the crown, so not all the way onto the facet on the top, the table facet, but it's just meant to hold in at a maximum 50% of that distance. So, clearly these would be way too long for that kind of thing. And in a future video, I'll talk about the best ways to, to measure that, cut them, how to file them, because you got to dress the ends. You can't just cut the ends with like a wire cutters and then push them down, because the edges will be a little bit janky. You'll need to file them down. And there's a little bit of concern because the rings are rhodium plated, right, for to ensure that beautiful silver luster and offer some tarnish resistance for years and years. So anywhere that you cut off and file off, you just have to be careful to not file too much of the front of the prong. It's okay the back and the tips. The tips of the prongs are going to get rubbed against, every day anyway. So it's not like you're ever going to notice that they haven't been plated with rhodium. Anyway, so that... That's the thing about this. So if you got super long, and I'll talk about this if we ever run across any others thing, but yeah, that's just something I just wanted to bring to your attention. Anyway, so our first ring today, and this is the tag is broken off here, so oh, of course, as always, I'm going to give you two prices. The first price, the retail price, is the price, whatever, the regular price. And the wholesale price is the price available to you if you spend $150 or more. This particular ring, MTR 437, has a retail price of $32.71 and a wholesale price of $21.80. And this is for 3mm cut stone. You might be able to put a cabochon in there depending on the shape of the bottom. It might be easy either way. But the seat is carved for cut stone, faceted stone. It's got a pretty good finger space there, so you don't have to worry about the culet scraping as you pull it on and off. It's nice and wide. Nice thing, almost kind of dainty, but also kind of manly. Not a super girly ring, but really nice for a little tiny stone, the 3mm stone. My next 3mm ring, we're going to do it by sizes, right? So more or less. This one also for 3mm stones, MTR 491, with a retail price of $13.51 and a wholesale price of $8.45. And this has a cute little, lovely little halo of cubic zirconias around the outside of that thing with some cute little hearts on the side. It's so cute. Nice deep basket, right? So it's really good for a cut stone. Again, you could definitely put a cabochon in there, right? The prongs are not super tall, so it'd have to be a low dome cab. But 3mm. Our next 3mm ring, MTR 457, with a retail price of $14.42 and a wholesale price of $9.02. And this is lovely kind of scroll work, right? That kind of like lovely, cute little scroll work. I don't know if you can see that. Put it. I have such giant fingers. Mind the scars, the jewelry maker's scars, right? Very gorgeous, very cute. Simple basket setting, right? It's got that hybrid seat, so it's designed for a cabochon or a cut stone. It's got some pretty good sized prongs on there for 4mm. This one kind of fits in with this 3mm thing because this is one of the few and I've only got like 2, maybe 3 of them, I think, off the top of my head, rings that have multiple settings, right? So this one, the 2 small settings are 3mm and the one big one is 5mm, right? So 3mm by 2, 5mm by 1. MTR 132 for a retail price of $23.72 and a wholesale price of $17.78. And it's just a cute little, band with a kind of like a split shaft up at the top to hold those settings in, right? And they're all clustered over there. Now, the nice thing about this, which is pretty rare for when you have clusters of stones like this, is that none of the settings share prongs, right? So this setting here has all 4 prongs. That setting there has all 4 prongs. That setting there has all 4 prongs. Usually with these, one of the inside prongs, like maybe, this one might be 1 prong that you push down to hold both stones in there, in that corner. But this is designed so you don't need to worry about that, which is awesome, because those are, quite frankly, a pain to set. Moving up, these are 4mm rings now. MTR 059 with a retail price of $19.13 and a wholesale price of $11.96. Now, I love this kind of profile, right, of that very grand, scrolly, sort of a thing with these little dots, the granulation dots there. From the front, it's deceptively simple looking, right? It's got a nice simple basket, but from the side, that's where it really shines, the thing on the side. I love that, how the profile of that looks. Right, very cool. This one, MTR, what is the number? I can see it, 070 with a retail price of $23.25 and a wholesale price of $16.13. This another 4mm setting, right? Just that little 4mm setting in the top, with a lovely, filigree, I guess, kind of pierced, cutaway filigree look. I wish I had a plastic finger that I could use for these things, right? So there's that side view. It's nice, kind of domed, right? That lovely scrolly effect. Very cute. Here's a very simple ring, another 4mm ring. MTR 407 with a retail price of $19.85 and a wholesale price of $11.91. This, right, from the top, very cute, kind of swirls, right, around a very simple basket setting. Another side view, right, that's tapered shaft, right, so it's pretty wide up near the setting, and it gets thinner and thinner on the sides of the ring and at the bottom. Where am I? Here I am. Our next one, MTR 505, with a retail price of $17.21 and a wholesale price of $10.76. This one has two 4mm settings, with that lovely kind of swooping thing with a split shank with the cubic zirconias, rows of cubic zirconias, in there. Right, very simple, very elegant. And kind of versatile, as long as you have two 4mm stones. And with those CZs in there, you can pretty much get away with any stone in that. It's designed for cut stones, but you can put cabs in there. And here too, MTR 449 with a retail price of $14.36 and a wholesale price of $8.98. Right, got these two little cubic zirconias on each side. Very simple, very elegant, and very cute. And it's kind of hard to get really blingy or gaudy with little tiny settings like 4mm, 5mm settings. We'll get into some pretty crazy ones when we get up to some of the bigger settings, like just, as a preview, that's one of the 9mm settings, which, I mean, that's just crazy. I love it. MTR 527 with a retail price of $17.51 and a wholesale price of $10.95. Right, cute little row of cubic zirconias along the band. This kind of look is really popular. A lot of the custom orders that we get for rings, people want to have that, especially the gold ones. They want the little diamonds in there in the sides. I don't know why. I guess it's a fashion thing. Very cute. Oh, my terrible cuticles. MTR, what's that? Let's see. Oh, 478 with a retail price of $15.67 and a wholesale price of $9.80. Right, this is as a kind of a chevron up at the top. I'll come to the point with a little cubic zirconia in the top and the bottom. Right, just a simple basket setting. This setting is designed for cut stones with a simple basket. It's got a pretty thing, so unless you have a really super deep pavilion, you wouldn't have to worry about that. Probably cabochons also work great in there. as long as it's not a super high dome cab. MTR 484 with a retail price of $16.36 and a wholesale price of $10.22. And this ring is a lovely kind of daisy, right? Flower, right? If you can see that. With cubic zirconias in the petals. And that lovely hybrid seed again. It's a nice, pretty deep basket, so it would be good for, definitely good for cut stones, is what it's designed for. But you can also put a cab in there, I think, pretty easily. Our next item, MTR 480 with a retail price of $15.04 and a wholesale price of $9.40. Again, nice simple band, almost a bit of a split band up near the setting, with a cubic zirconia in there, almost a spiritual cousin of this one with a chevron right in the top. Very similar, although this gets wide and the cubic zirconia is kind of set in the middle of what is ostensibly a split shank. It's not actual split shank. But anyway, nice, very simple, very elegant. Can't go wrong. This MTR 489. Also 4mm with a retail price of $15.62 and a wholesale price of $9.76. I just love this kind of, I don't know if you can see that sort of pierced squares, you know, look. If you can see that better, there you go. Right, very cute. With a simple basket setting up at the top there. Again, cut stone or cabochon, either will work in there. Our next one, MTR 485 with a retail price of $17.74 and a wholesale price of $11.08. This lovely kind of little halo ring with some cubic zirconias in those little curly Q components. It's got a good sized basket, so a cut stone will work in there, a cabochon will work in there, anything will work in there. And again, I love how this taper, you know, is sort of inverse, right? It's tapered so it gets thinner in this direction if you're looking from the top, right, up to the band. But from the side, it's tapered the opposite way. How, you know, it's thinner at the side and the bottom of the band, and it gets wider and wider all the way up to the base. I just love that that look, and that very simple but striking. MTR 495 with a retail price of $15.44 and a wholesale price of $9.65. Now this ring has two little I guess they're like leaves, right? Where the band comes up and meets the top, it's mirrored leaves that are holding each other in there. There's some granulation there, but there's not cubic zirconias. It's got a cute little, you know, very simple basket. That same inverse taper. Our next item, MTR 442 with a retail price of $16.69 and a wholesale price of $10.42. I love this, just, you know, cute flowers, you know, sort of motif with all these components. A nice deep basket. That same, you know, band tapered towards the, you know, in the one direction, but flared out in the other direction, right? Ostensibly designed for a cut stone, but you could very easily put a cabochon in there. I'm fond of doing either. Doing what works for you, doing what works best. MTR 487 with a retail price of $14.67 and a wholesale price of $9.18. Another very simple split bail, right? Terminating in a cute little basket. That kind of faux chevron, you know, effect up at the top there, where the top of the band meets itself. Good size basket, cabochon or a cut stone, anything will work in there. You know, I don't know. What more can you say about a very simple, classic, elegant band like that? MTR 506 with a retail price of $14.16 and a wholesale price of $8.84. Again, that same flared up at the top and, you know, tapered to a point. A couple of little cubic zirconias in the sides, right? Just cannot go wrong. Very cute. I think it probably, you know, a cut stone will work in there. Cabochon, boy, anything. As long as it's not super deep pavilion on there, you should be good to go with that. And I think that's it for the 4mm stone rings. This one is 5mm. MTR 524 for $18.31 is a retail price, and $11.43 is the wholesale price. Again, and we say 5mm stones, but you know, if you have a 4.5mm stone and it doesn't fit in any of the smaller settings, you can definitely put it in one of these. This cute, you know, kind of like almost a hexagonal halo with some cubic zirconias in the top and the bottom, but not on the sides. These lovely, you know, rings in the side, horseshoes, magnets, whatever you want to call them. I don't know. Very cute. Nice deep basket, so a cut stone will work in there. It's got pretty good sized prongs, so you can definitely put a cab in there. Again, for relatively speaking, for the size of these prongs, right? If you push these all the way over, depending on if it's a cut stone, depending on how high the stone sits in the setting, this might go all the way over onto the table, onto the flat of the very top, which you don't want. You know, you don't want the prongs to go all the way onto the table of the stone. So you can just cut these down, file these little domes in there. These little prongs are flat on the inside, rounded on the outside, which traditionally are, you know, designed for cabochons. You can definitely use them for cut stones, though. I think a lot of our settings, especially for little stones, are like that. They're just easier to set. MTR 440 with a retail price of $17.36 and a wholesale price of $10.85. Cute little flower made with these little filigree components. That's one of my favorite components to make in filigree. That curlicue, I don't know, kind of heart shaped thing. And again, what is that, 5mm? Is that really 5mm? Looks a little bit bigger. Anyway, nice deep basket. Again, that inverse taper, right? Wider at the top on the sides and thinner at the top on the, you know, from this direction. I just love that effect. It's just very cool. Right, so ostensibly a cabochon or a cut stone, anything will fit in there. This is designed for a cut stone, but I would definitely not feel out of place putting a cabochon in there. Our next item, MTR 475 with a retail price of $16.40 and a wholesale price of $10.25. Right, nice deep basket, good sized prongs. Cabochon or a cut stone will fit in there. I love that sort of halo, that pierced, almost filigree like halo. I just love that. And the little club with cubic zirconia in the top, the little teardrop shapes. I guess they could be hearts if you look at it from the right angle. It's so cute. MTR 463 with a retail price of $16.77 and a wholesale price of $10.48. Again, that same reverse taper, right? How it's flared up at the top and, you know, flared down from the top angle. In the side view, it gets wider. In the top angle, it gets thinner. I love that. Very cool effect. Nice deep basket, right? So for a cabochon or a cut stone, these is kind of interesting scrolly work, you know, faux scrolling work, very sort of Victorian looking. Although, I don't know, I wouldn't feel out of place putting anything in here, a cabochon or a cut stone. Our next ring, MTR 522, with a retail price of $16.47 and a wholesale price of $10.29. This is the nice big halo. You know, I just did some earrings that have this exact setting on it. We just put those up on the website today, yesterday, I should say. Anyway, nice deep basket. Very cool. These also should be going up on the website. Some of these, anyway, are new. Yeah, 522, that's a new one. Right, so cabochon or a cut stone, anything will fit in there. A lot of these rounds are new because I made the mistake of telling Marble that we didn't have enough round settings for rings, and the last time he came back from the factory, he had them make a ton of them. So we've got lots now. MTR 525, $18.99 is the retail price, and $11.88 is the wholesale price. And I just love this. I don't know. To me, this looks like a snake, right? With the little body and the little head, although it's probably something cuter than that. You don't have to look at it as that. Very simple basket. That basket looks a little bit oval to me, but it's not. It's round, 5 millimeters. Rows of cubic zirconias up and down the sides, right? Nice deep basket for a cabochon or a cut stone. I think it's designed for a cut stone. MTR 508 with a retail price of $17.44 and a wholesale price of $10.91. Again, this is designed for all right, let me talk about this. So let me just talk about the band first. The band, very simple. He's got these two little split shanks that come up and meet this setting at the top, this lovely, flower. Now, ideally, you'd want to put a little cabochon in there that you could push these petals down, right, to make kind of like a staggered, scalloped, edges around the thing. But you could definitely, if the girdle is not super tall, like sometimes on stones their girdle is really, really thin. It's ideally, in a perfect world, it'd be like perfectly flat. It'd be straight. There'd be no edge, or there'd be no width to the girdle. There should be zero width. But a lot of times you'll see, the edge of the girdle of the stone is a little bit flat all the way around, and it might be tricky setting that kind of a stone in here. But if it's a zero edge girdle, you can definitely push these down onto that stone and set that in there. Although I think a cab is probably best for that. If you didn't want to mar these by pushing them down, if you're not careful, you could probably glue something in there. Although, golly, just not a fan of glue. Here's one of the other multi-stone rings, MTR 181, with a retail price of $32.74 and a wholesale price of $24.56. And this one has 3 5-millimeter settings, right? The ring splits up into 3 separate split shank, separates into 3 separate bands that go through, and they're just kind of staggered on there, right? Just simple basket setting, very simple, very cool. This looks great when it's all set up. I've done a few of these at shows. People buy some stones and get them to work. MTR 510 with a retail price of $17.02 and a wholesale price of $10.64. Again, another 5-millimeter round stone. Lovely, cute, very deep basket with all that kind of pierced framework in there. I love those triangles. Now, the seat is designed for a cut stone, right? But you can definitely put a cabochon in there as long as it's not super tall domed. I wouldn't feel mad about that at all. Very gorgeous, very interesting, very cool. MTR 483 with a retail price of $14.59 and a wholesale price of $9.13. This is just a cute little, band again with that kind of scroll work, alternating a mirror image scroll work thing on both sides with a simple band. Cabochon or cut stone in there, anything will work in there. I love that. Very simple, very easy to set, very classic. Love it. MTR, what is that? 502 with a retail price of $16.09 and a wholesale price of $10.06. And this is another new one, right? Very simple, small band, thin band, splits up with the cubic zirconias in the center, dangled around that very simple basket. I love that. Very cool, very classic, very interesting. This is what's actually a little more classic. MTR 519 with a retail price of $16.66 and a wholesale price of $10.42. Again, for a 5mm round stone, this has got a lovely halo of cubic zirconias around a very simple basket setting. Nice deep basket, so it doesn't matter how deep the pavilion is on your cut stone, that the culet probably won't extend into the finger space there, so you don't have to worry about your stone scratching your finger. Although and a cute little cabochon in there would be just great also. So I don't know, it's up to you, I guess. MTR 125 with a retail price of $31.43 and a wholesale price of $19.64. Now, this is a kind of an interesting ring. Oops, let me move this. In that it's obviously it's mostly hollow, but it's got that big tall setting up at the top, right? With that almost looks like bead and bright cut cutaways, areas. The stone sits in there, and then the tops of the intersections of all those things push down a thing. Now these, I don't know if you can see, the insides of those are notched, right? So it's very easy, even though the lower sections of these I guess they're kind of like prongs, even though it's just, the intersections of all the cutaway sections or the carved away sections. It makes it very easy to push the tops of those down onto the girdle of your stone. Right? Really striking, very cool. And kind of big. I love it. Right? Our next item, MTR 454. With a retail price of $15.15 and a wholesale price of $9.46. And again, here's another one for another 5mm cut stone or cabochon. Very simple, very elegant, classic. Oops, out of the frame there. Split shank, right? Now are we done with the 5mm? I think we are. We're moving up in the world. These are the 6mm rounds. MTR 468 with a retail price of $15.15 and a wholesale price of $9.48. And this has just got a lovely trio of cubic zirconias on either side. Right, set. It's just so simple and elegant. And again, I love that taper, how it flares up at the top on the sides and tapers down to a point from the front. So it's just a very cool, simple design. MTR 467 with a retail price of $16.85 and a wholesale price of $10.53. And I love that. Very simple quatrefoil shape, right? With those four curves, right, on either side. Very simple surrounding the seat. Nice deep basket, so cut stones definitely work in here. Cabochons definitely work in there. Lovely, very elegant, very cool. Again, tapered wider on the side view all the way up to the basket, and tapered thinner all the way up to the basket in the top view. MTR 476 with a retail price of $18.05 and a wholesale price of $11.27. And again, another ring for 6mm cabochon or cut stone. I love this row of cubic zirconias down around the bottom, right around the base of that seat. And then these tall prongs. Again, if you've got a cut stone and the girdle sits all the way flat against the bottom, you probably don't need these prongs to be quite so tall. You can snip those down a little bit, file the ends into a nice little dome, and then push them down onto the stone. The prongs only need to extend about halfway up the girdle, you know. Or you can push them a little bit, you know, taller up onto the girdle, but you don't want to push them all the way onto the table. That's the flat facet at the very top of the stone. That you want to be free. MTR 472 with a retail price of $17.52 and a wholesale price of $10.95. Again, another 6mm setting with that row of garlands, I guess. What it looks like, crown of ivory that Caesar wears. What is that? I can't remember. Anyway, cute little floral leaves with cubic zirconias in them, you know, surrounding that piece. I love how they're kind of at an angle, right? So it gives it a little bit of motion. Again, the reverse taper, right? Tapered to a thin up at the top from the top view, and tapered wide on the side view. Very lovely. Very cute. Our next one, another very simple, elegant ring with some cubic zirconias, MTR 543 with a retail price of $17.13 and a wholesale price of $10.71. I love that big wide basket, right? Again, the prongs are not super tall on this, so ideally a cut stone goes in there. Cabochon can work if it's a low dome, right? If it's a really low dome with those little tiny prongs. I think a cut stone is your best bet for that ring setting. Anyway, I just love these, you know, cute, very simple leaves, flares. I don't know what you call them. Not really a chevron, but in the top of that, where am I? Oh, now this one is one of the new ones. I love this one. MTR 481 with a retail price of $18.41 and a wholesale price of $11.50. Again, for a 6mm stone. I love that kind of reverse intertwining, right? How they're kind of the split shank, right? Begins, you know, weaving itself back and forth. This row of cubic zirconias continues all the way to the other side, and this row that's smooth continues all the way to the other side. So it's very cute, very sinuous, nice deep basket. It's got a solid, you know, meeting place down at the bottom. So if you've got a ridiculously tall prong pavilion, you might have trouble getting that to sit down on the bottom. But it would have to be insanely tall for it to not fit in this thing. I think like 99% of stones would fit in there easily. 6mm stones anyway, obviously. And again, the prongs are not super tall. They're pre-notched on the inside. So this is designed definitely for a cut stone to put in there. Although, you know, depending on the shape and the edge geometry, as long as it's a low enough dome, you could probably put a cab on there. It might look weird because you got that empty space down in between on the bottom of that, you know, where the seat is. That ideally you'd want to see the pavilion of your stone in there to give it some color. But I don't have to wear them, so it's not up to me, right? If you love it, then you're right. MTR 067 with a retail price of $18.90 and a wholesale price of $14.18. And this is just a very classic, basket. I don't know. It's like I always call this like Tiffany setting, right? Although I think generally speaking, that's more of a Tiffany setting, right? That kind of a thing. But we'll get there. But it's just a crown setting. Looks like a crown setting. This is a 6-prong crown setting. Nice big, kind of a beefy, wide ring shank. But it's not super heavy because it's hollowed out a little bit up at the top. And I've set a ton of stones in these rings at shows. They're very simple, very easy, or cut stones. Capuchons are a little bit trickier because depending on the shape of them, they shift a lot when you're pushing these kinds of prongs over. But a cut stone just sits beautifully in there. The prongs push over very easily. And it's just lovely. Our next 6mm setting, MTR 403, with a retail price of $21.45 and a wholesale price of $12.88. Again, another split shank with that just very cool sort of wrapping around the basket setting. This is another 6-prong basket. Again, the prongs, you can customize them however you like, although depending on the shape of your stone, the length of the prongs as they are might be just fine. Yeah, very simple, very elegant. Pretty deep basket too, so these prongs are bent out from being in the tray, I think. These rings, oh boy, they've been to so many shows, and they've traveled around stacked on top with other stuff stacked on top of them. It's amazing that most of them aren't broken. MTR 404 with a retail price of $19.04 and a wholesale price of $11.42. Of course, they're not broken because we take very good care of all of our things as we travel around to shows, right? Yeah. I just love this kind of open framework, right? That kind of, industrial looking, frame. I just love that. Very cute. Very cool. Another 6-prong basket. These and the other one that I just showed you before, right? This one and this one. Cabochons I find are really tricky to set in these things because they shift a lot. Cut stones are much easier to set in these settings, but it is possible. Where am I? I'm here. MTR 131 with a retail price of $19.29 and a wholesale price of $15.43. And here's another 6mm. Where am I? Oh golly, these are some more 5s that were left over. So here's another 5mm going backwards. Very simple, elegant, kind of wrap around, sort of effect. With that 5mm basket setting, another 6-prong setting. You can see the notches on the inside. So this is designed definitely for a cut stone. I think a cut stone will work best in here. You might be able to put a cab in there. Yeah, I don't see why not. It might be tricky because the seat is so thin that there's not a lot of room for the lip of a cab to sit on there. Obviously a cut stone would be able to do it, so there's really no reason why a cab shouldn't. It's just a little less, not secure, the word is I'm looking for. It's just a little more jiggly, more chances of the stone shifting if you put a cab in there as you're doing it, as you're setting it. Once it's set, obviously it'll stay set forever, but it's just getting it set in the first place. That can be a little bit tricky for cabs, not for cut stones. For cut stones, those are just simple, easy peasy, as they say. MTR 058 with a retail price of $14.62 and a wholesale price of $9.14. And this, you can't get any more simple than this, right? Just a very simple, elegant 4-prong. What is that? That's like another 5mm. Yeah, 5mm round setting. You definitely want to put a cut stone in here. You might be able to put a cab in there. But for these kinds of tapered settings, I find they're really super tricky to get a cab to sit in there easily as you're pushing the prongs over. It's much easier to do it with a cut stone, a faceted stone. Again, the prongs are pre-notched for your convenience. MTR 199 with a retail price of $19.64 and a wholesale price of $13.41. I love this big, wide open, pierced, sort of almost filigree, top, tapered up at the top. This works. There's no way a cab will fit in here. This works great for 5mm. I set a lot of 5mm cut stones in here, but they've got to be like a really, really tiny girdle. Like ideally, again, a 0 width girdle works great in here. I don't know if you can see the prongs. They're not super tall, so if you have a high girdle, I guess, if the girdle is flat and there's an edge and it's maybe a millimeter wide, it might be trickier to get these prongs to sit over onto the crown. But again, for a 0 edge girdle, easy peasy. And there's I'm pretty sure this is really the last 5mm round that we've got now. MTR 393 with a retail price of $14.77 and a wholesale price of $10.33. Another simple, very simple, elegant basket, right? Just can't go wrong. Very plain, very simple, very... this is, again, another one of those, look at the cute stone I've got, instead of, oh, look at the cool ring I have that has a very cool stone in there. Okay, so those were the 5mm that were left over, stragglers from the 6mm. Now we got some 7mm round settings here. MTR 452 with a retail price of $15.42 and a wholesale price of $9.64. Again, very simple, elegant, basket in that faux split shank with the cubic zirconia in there. Oh no, that's a real split shank. Yep, that's open. Nice round, very simple, elegant basket. Can't go wrong. MTR, where am I? $4.94 with a retail price of $19.24 and a wholesale price of $12.03. Nice deep basket, right? Very simple, very elegant. 4 little bulges, I guess, around the thing. Obviously, the ring is designed for a cut stone. If it were a low dome cab, you might be able to get away with doing that because the prongs are not super tiny, but they're not super tall either. These are pre-notched a little bit, and they're not really notches. They're more kind of like grooves cut out of them, so they're not traditional notches like you would have done with a stone setting burr or a heart burr. That's heart, H-A-R-T. But they're more, semicircular. So it just makes them prongs easier to push over onto the stone. Again, you probably wouldn't need to snip these down or cut those down. It should be just about the perfect size for your stone. Our next 7mm ring is MTR 528 with a retail price of $20.75 and a wholesale price of $12.97. Right, another split shank with that row of cubic zirconias, right, encircling the outside of the band. Just lovely round basket setting, very simple, very elegant. Definitely for a cut stone. Cabochon might fit in there also. A little bit again, but this is for a 7mm round stone. MTR 471 with a retail price of $18.06 and a wholesale price of $11.29. Another octagonal star, I guess, with cubic zirconias in the points, or maybe a sun. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's got a very interesting seat, and not a super deep seat, so cut stone, cabochon, anything fits in there. Very gorgeous. Again, that alternating taper, right, where it gets thinner from the top view and wider from the side view. Very simple, very elegant. Love that. And again, you know, that cubic zirconias around the outside of that would definitely frame stone. You know, I think it would look great with nice dark, you know, sapphire or something in here. Here's one. This is super popular ring. MTR 520 with a retail price of $16.20 and a wholesale price of $10.13. And this, I just love this, you know, the ring shanks are these cute little vines, right? With these little leaves that are anchoring the basket with the cubic zirconias on the side. Again, this one is for a 7mm stone, right? Prongs are a good size. So cut stones or cabochons, depending on the shape of your cab, you might need to, you know, cut those down a little bit. Probably not, but, you know, and definitely not if you put a cab in there. But I just love that. And again, for some reason, that's one of the most popular rings for that size. Another 7mm stone ring, MTR $3.99 with a retail price of $19.79 and a wholesale price of $11.88. And this is a kind of a, you know, take on that simple Tiffany kind of setting, right? Though this is pierced. And I just love that open framework on the side, right? So, you know, from the top, it's very simple, very elegant, you know, side view. It's I don't know, just a lot more interesting. I don't know if I can put my finger in there. You can see what it looks like when it's on your finger, right? Very cool. And again, these the setting is has notches in there, so if you're setting a cut stone, super easy because it just sits beautifully down on the bottom of that setting. And as you push these prongs together, you know, the stone can slide up until the girdle matches where those notches are. If you're putting a cabochon in here, which is definitely doable, and I know because I've done it, it's a real pain. I'll just call it that, a real pain, because the stone shifts so much as you're pushing these prongs over, sort of thing. So you really have to be mindful of tacking the stone in bit by bit as you're doing this. Our next one, another 7mm setting, MTR $3.98 with a retail price of $19.55 and a wholesale price of $11.73. This is a very similar, very close spiritual cousin to that one we were just talking about, right? Same setting at the top, just a little bit different pattern on the side, a little bit different, you know, cutaway frame. Very gorgeous, very interesting, very cool. Here's another 7mm setting, MTR 474 with a retail price of $17.35 and a wholesale price of $10.83. Again, from the top, very gorgeous. This is another one that's really popular with this cubic zirconias in the band and the very simple, you know, setting up at the top. Definitely added bling to your stones. Now we've got some moving up in the world. We've got some 8mm settings. And this is really crooked. Well, that's okay. We'll just pretend it's supposed to be. MTR 460 with a retail price of $19.16 and a wholesale price of $11.97. This 8mm setting with that lovely, you know, flower, you know, effect. It's basically a quatrefoil with these extra, you know, bulges on the side. Golly, when I look at that, it's almost like, and this would only make sense if you're Canadian, but it looks like the CBC logo. I love it. Very cool. Very interesting. Where am I? 8mm stones. Here's another one. MTR 438 with a retail price of $21.92 and a wholesale price of $13.70. Lovely square inside square halo of cubic zirconias with other cubic zirconias, bigger ones at the cardinal points, north, south, east, and west, right? Very simple band, tapered, to a point at the top, tapered wide on the side view. Again, pretty good sized prongs. So ostensibly this is designed for cut stone because, well, no, you know what? I bet this is probably better. Just looking at the depth of that finger space on the bottom, you'd have to have a pretty shallow pavilion for this to work without the culet sticking down underneath the setting here and extending into the finger space. Although it's definitely doable for a lot of stones, but some maybe not. I think this would be probably ideal with a cabochon in there, right? Maybe a lovely opal or something. Very gorgeous. MTR, where am I? 446 with a retail price of $22.30 and a wholesale price of $13.95. Another 8mm setting, and I love this. This is another, kind of a new one, or it's an older one that we just started getting back in, or maybe it's not. I can't remember. It's new to me. I just love this open framework, with that filigree, faux filigree look with a row of cubic zirconias on the sides, up to that lovely 7mm or 8mm, I should say, round setting. Again, this is pretty deep. So cut stones, I defy you to find a cut stone with a pavilion deep enough for the culet to go into the finger space here. This is just not going to happen. So any cut stone that will fit is definitely good for that. Cabochon also, it's already pretty high on the finger. So if you got a really, really thick cab, it might look a little ridiculous. So a low dome cab would be best. Cut stone would be ideal, I think. But that's just me. Here's another one of those rings that ideally, I'll talk about this in a minute, MTR 410 with a retail price of $19.94 and a wholesale price of $11.96. And again, the tapered shaft up to the setting right from the top, but flared out, up to the thing in the basket, up to the sides. Another 6-prong setting, right? So cut stone is ideal, works in there very, very easily, can set a cut stone in there. Again, the prongs, depending on the shape of your pavilion, how low it sits in the setting, how tall of a crown you have, you may not need all of the length on these prongs, so you can cut these down very easily, dress the ends, maybe with a cup burr or, a file, anything, polish them up beautifully, and then push those down. These are not quite flat on the inside and domed on the outside, but they're also not like really super round, right, these prongs. So you can definitely file the inside a little bit flat, to get those to sit down on the setting, right? But again, this another one of those rings where I've set, lots of cut stones in them at shows. But when somebody brings me this and a cabochon to set, it's always one of those, okay, I need to take a deep breath because cabochons tend to shift because there's not a really, really deep setting. Boss's AirPods are only at 20%. Hey, boss. Your phone just told me your AirPods are at 20%. Oh. Here's one, MTR 137 with a retail price of $24.19 and a wholesale price of $16.51. This is just a very simple, nice wide shank tapered down to the bottom. Obviously for a cabochon, you wouldn't put a cut stone in there. And the bezel wall on that is pretty thick. So this is definitely a glue-in, kind of a glue-on setting, a setting for gluing your stones in there. Where are we? Oops, sorry. Dead air. MTR 408 with a retail price of $22.60 and a wholesale price of $13.55. Again, for 8mm round. This is another one of those hybrid seats where you can definitely get away with a cabochon or a cut stone in here. I love these double prongs because I like the way it looks after it's sitting down on the on a cabochon. I don't know that I've tried this specifically on a cut stone, although definitely a cut stone would work. Right. Just think it's very cool. Again, for 8mm stone. Oh, is that it? Or is we have 0 people on? Nobody's watching. Hi, if you are. You're watching? Yeah. I have 0 people on my thing. MTR 396, 2051 is your retail price, and $12.30 is your wholesale price. Very simple, elegant, basket. Again, 6-prong basket. Cut stones, definitely very easy on this thing. Cabochons, the seat is wide enough that if it's a flat cab on the background, sometimes, cabs on the back are slightly domed. That might shift around a little bit. If it's a flat cab and it fits perfectly in here, very easy to set this a cabochon in there. Again, but for some reason, every time, I have a seat like this where there's a gap on the underside, I kind of want to see the pavilion of the stone behind there. But that's just me. What do I know? MTR 406 with a retail price of $21.22 and a wholesale price of $12.73. And oh my gosh, this got definitely got mangled in the here, I'll show you like this. See, oh, I promise when you get them, they'll be round. This is another, can I find it very quickly? No, whatever, it's somewhere. Spiritual successor to one of the other rings that we have in there. It's basically exactly the same as this, right? This one, only instead of a 7mm setting, it's got an 8mm setting in the top. Again, cabochons might be tricky. Cut stones, ideal for these. These prongs are super easy to set with a cut stone. Literally, if you've got a stone setting pliers, you could pull one at a time over. If you've just got a regular chain nose pliers, if you're really super careful, you can come from the top and push both sides in slightly just until the stone pushes itself up and works its way up to the notch in the thing. Do the same on the other side, and then with a stone setting a prong pusher, just push the tops of those prongs down over on the stone. Very simple. Again, we really need to make a set of stone setting videos. 427 MTR 274B. When I get 427, Mr. Dyslexia coming out to play again. MTR 274B with a retail price of $24.62 and a wholesale price of $15.80. Again, setting for an 8mm round cabochon or cut stone. I would put a cut stone in here before a cab personally. I just think it's a better fit with that nice deep basket there. Very simple split shank with these cute little, adornments. I don't know. How can you say no to that? Moving up in the world, here's MTR 409 with a retail price of $24.30 and a wholesale price of $14.58. This is for a 9mm stone. This is a lovely, just a very simple split shank, terminating in a Tiffany style prong setting. And again, super easy to set these stones in here if you know it, if you do it right, if you know how to do it. Very simple. These have curves, and these notches are there for the girdle to sit in there. Now, ideally, if your girdle is wider, you might need to file a little bit wider inside that to make those notches a little deeper. But you just push these two prongs in the same time until the stone is sitting up inside those notches. Don't push them too tight, then turn it and do the same thing in the other direction until those are sitting up in there. Then you could tweak them a little bit, push them close, depending on how hard your stone is. If it's a sapphire or something, you can just like squeeze the crap out of it. But if it's something much more delicate, you just might want to be careful. Like emeralds, I have PTSD from emeralds shattering in my setting. MTR 401 with a retail price of $21.98 and a wholesale price of $13.19. Again, very simple, very elegant, very big, deep basket setting. Not for a 9mm stone. This is another 6-prong setting, right? Very simple to set cut stones in there because the seat is, the stone just sits very simply, very easily in the seat. Cabochons might be a little bit trickier because they shift a little bit as you're setting it, but nothing that is impossible to do on that. Here's God, I love this one. This is a crazy ring. MTR 349 with a retail price of $36.87 and a wholesale price of $25.81. Again, for another 9mm round stone. I just love this freeform sort of bands, interlocking, over weaving each other. Some have cubic zirconias set in them, some don't. It's just very cool, very cool, very interesting. Definitely a showstopper. That's one of those things that somebody stop you in the grocery store. Oh, look at my ring. Ideally, a cut stone would fit in there, although the seat is designed such that you could definitely put a cab in there. Again, this is already sitting pretty high on your finger. If it's a really super tall cab, first of all, the prongs might not reach, but more importantly, that the stone ends up sitting really high, and I think it might look weird. Definitely for a cut stone, though. Right. We're getting to the last few big ones. What time is it? How are we doing? Oh gosh, we're way past an hour and 15 minutes already. I'll try to be quick. MTR 521 with a retail price of $22.95 and a wholesale price of $14.34. Very simple halo, right, of arcs and cubic zirconias in there. Nice big wide halo, right? And pretty good size prongs, so cabochon fits in there. It's not super deep, so if it's a pretty shallow cut stone, that's also a really good option for this. Here's another one. Oh God. MTR 512 with a retail price of $19.95 and a wholesale price of $12.74. This is another, just a little bit bigger version of that other one that I showed you before with the vines and the cubic zirconias. This one for a 10mm stone. The seat is designed, looks like for a cabochon, but the basket is deep enough for a cut stone. Usually when you see a flat seat there that it says cabochon, but you can definitely put a cut stone in there for sure. I guess it depends on how deep your stone fits down in there. Here's another 10mm stone setting, MTR 397 with a retail price of $20.40 and a wholesale price of $12.56. Again, very simple crown with that 6-prong Tiffany style setting. Super easy to set stones in here. I've actually used this to set an oval stone, right? Because you could push, say, 2 of these prongs in a little more than these outside ones, and it looks really great on this ring. So I think it was something like an 8x10 stone that I put in there, off the top of my head. It was very cool. People at shows ask you to do weird things, and, because they're customers, the answer always is yes. Of course we can do that. MTR 405,
$23.31 is the retail price, and $13.99 is the wholesale price. Again, nice big basket for a 10 millimeter cut stone or cabochon. Cabochons, again, I've set cabs in here. Super tricky because it shifts so much when you're trying to set the stone in there. Cut stones would be much easier. But it's just a very cool, very interesting, setting, right? With the top of that sitting proud on your finger. Obviously, once the stone is set and these prongs are sitting down, this won't look so pokey, but very cool. And this is a 8-prong setting, which is more for decoration than security. And if that last one was, over the top or, a little more, this is like this totally stripped down version of, what's like the most minimalist ring that we have. MTR 197 with a retail price of $20.06 and a wholesale price of $13.10. This is just a very simple 1 millimeter band, or maybe 1.5 millimeter band, and a very simple cabochon, seat up at the top. These lovely prongs that would push over onto it. I don't know what else to say about that besides it's about as simple and classic and easy as you get. And we sell a ton of them. This is another one of those rings that the people who do commemoration jewelry, they cast their own little cabochons. And I guess 10 millimeter is one of the... Nelson, my queen is calling you. Well, not my queen. MTR 153 with a retail price of $25.35 and a wholesale price of $17.73. Again, nice big basket. This I wouldn't even bother trying to put a cabochon in there because the seat is the same all the way around down, right? There's nowhere for the cab to sit on. Cut stone definitely would work because you'd pull these prongs open a little bit, because this, if I measure this across, it's probably something like 9.75. You need to pull these prongs open slightly, and the prongs themselves become the seat that this pushes over onto, right? Pre-notched to make it easy to set, and a very cool double stacked scalloped, effect. Very interesting, very cool. I love it. Love it. We're down to the last few here. Another 10 millimeter, this is for a cabochon, MTR 182 with a retail price of $27.81 and a wholesale price of $19.86. Again, just that lovely crown bezel, right? You pop your cab in there. You could use a little glue if you want, or if it's a low dome cab, and you could push these onto the stone to hold it in place. So much the better. It's really gorgeous when the stones are set in there. But personally, I'm not a fan of gluing if you can get away with using just the prongs, MTR 348 with a retail price of $30.97 and a wholesale price of $20.64. This, right, lovely kind of post-industrial sort of looking, shape, and just a lovely round cabochon in there that you would glue in there, obviously. Cut stone, boy, you might be able to get away with doing a cut stone. The bezel wall, or this top of this frame is scooped out. It's not super thick. You could definitely do it. It might be tricky to do it without marring the surface unless you're really good at flush mounts or those kind of things. Probably gluing in would be best, or taping off the back, right, to seal off the back, and then filling it with epoxy resin. Because you knew that had to come up at some point during the day. Oh boy, wait until I get to do the pearl rings. MTR 186 with a retail price of $28.20 and a wholesale price of $20.21. Again, very simple. Whenever you see this kind of texture, right, with all these dots, that means glue goes here. Right, so you could probably pull these up a little bit, right? Before you slide your cab in there, slide your cabochon in there with some glue, good 2-part epoxy. And then once the glue has cured after a day or so, then you could push these prongs, over. And they're not really prongs, they're really, really tabs. You might be able to push those over down onto your stone just so they look nice and tight. Here's MTR 063 with a retail price of $26.31 and a wholesale price of $16.86. And this just whatever, straight, just a lovely split shank, very simple, very elegant, 10 millimeter cabochon that you would glue on there, or I'm gonna say it, fill that with epoxy resin. I think it would be awesome. Or cut out a little picture of something, glue that down onto the bottom of that, and then fill it with clear resin, so it makes a little dome at the top. Very cool effect. Very, very, very cool. You know what? I'm going to have to do that as a demo one day, I think, just because I'm obsessed with that material. MTR 169 with a retail price of $32.49 and a wholesale price of $23.96. Again, this is for a 12 millimeter round cabochon. This would definitely glue in. Again, anytime you see that texture with the dots, that means glue goes here. Just love this it looks, I don't know, snake. It looks like a snake. It's not really a snake because there's no snake heads, but I just love that texture, that granulation, that kind of, envelopes the seat up at the top. Very cool and lovely with stones in them. I'm going fast now. I've got 4 rings left. MTR 069 with a retail price of $24.25 and a wholesale price of $17.36. Again, this is for an 11 millimeter round cabochon or cut stone. Cut stones, obviously, you can see the notches in those prongs. This ring is designed for cut stones. You might be able to put a cab in there if it's a really, really low dome thing, but I think cut stones are best for that. MTR 164 with a retail price of $30.08 and a wholesale price of $21.84. This is for a 12 millimeter round cabochon. Again, you glue that cab down on there, and then once the glue is cured, you can maybe push these prongs over, or these tabs over, these lovely curly cues, tabs. If it's a low dome, really low dome cab, you might be able to just get away with pushing these over and setting the stone that way, and that'll hold that stone in place. MTR 145 with a retail price of $26.91 and a wholesale price of $19.08. Regular old 13 millimeter is the size of the setting. Very simple split shank. Coming up to nice, pretty, not a deep basket, super shallow basket either. Good size basket though. So, if it's not a super deep pavilion, you could definitely get away with cut stone in there. Might be able to do a cab if it's a low dome with those prongs that are not super tall. And the last ring I'm going to show you today is another crazy one. I love this. MTR 159 with a retail price of $28.40 and a wholesale price of $19.71. This is for a 15 millimeter round. I have set a cab in here. It was a nightmare, quite frankly, because it shifts so much. There's not a lot of space for the seat. For the stone to sit in there. Cut stones would be really, really easy in this thing. My only concern is that, if this girdle sits down at the bottom of this prong, right? I don't know if you could see there's a little ledge there, right? That's where the stone is supposed to sit on that. That's the seat of that thing, that little ledge. So if the ledge of the top of the stone sits there, then if your pavilion is deeper than, what is that, like 4 millimeters, then the culet is going to extend into the finger space and scrape on your fingers and make you cranky. So even though it's much easier to set a cut stone than a cabochon in here, this is really is, and it looks like it's not. It looks like it's designed for a cut stone, but really, cabochons are better in this than cut stones. Anyway, I just love this kind of crown effects with all that granulation. Very cool, very simple. Yeah, that's it for a 15 millimeter round. And that's it. That's all the rings we're doing today. We'll have more next week. We have things. So those are all the rounds. Those are the rounds we've done. We've got commotion happening outside. The deliveries. Probably next week we'll start with the ovals. Or I'm of two minds. I don't know if we're going to do the pearl ones tomorrow, or maybe we'll do pearls next week. Start with the pearl rings, because you get to use lots of potential two-part epoxy jokes in there, because I love that stuff. So I guess that's it. I'm sorry we went over. I know I try to keep these under an hour, and we're like an hour and a half probably now. I don't know. I didn't have a timer to go. I went really fast. I tried to do as many as I could in one day. I didn't want to split up the rounds into two videos, or have too much disjointedness. Like have some here, some there, some there. Although we kind of did that with the pendants, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Anyway. Thank you for joining us. If you're still here, I see, to me, I have my thing. It says that there's one person. I think that one person is probably Nelson, who's watching. But if you're watching this after and you're still here, thanks for hanging on through till the end. You're probably not. Everybody's gone, which is fine. I'm just talking to myself because I'm good at that. We'll see you next week, next Wednesday, 10:30 Pacific time, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, and you can extrapolate whatever time zone you're in. Take care of yourself, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health. Keep making stuff. Just keep making stuff. That's the best way through everything. And we'll talk to you next week with more rings. Thank you. Bye-bye.